Oh, hey, hello. This is Art Story, your local art show, profiling your best and beautiful artists in town and around Windham County. And we have awesome guests today with us today. We have Billy Higgins and Bill Fortune. How are you guys doing today?
Doing
Doing pretty great. How are you?
I'm doing good. This is a really good. Is it springtime? I don't even know.
It feels like spring.
Something.
It's fantastic.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't wanna get too like
There's
I don't want
always,
to say it's spring.
there's
but
always the chance it can
feels-
get cold again.
The second you say it's spring,
snowstorm.
snow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so we might not say anything about
Good. It'll be when we had a bad ski season last year. This could be a good ski season. So
Yeah.
we'll take some more snow if we have to.
So, Bill, you are new in town. You
Yes.
just moved here.
I did. I am a recent refugee from San Francisco. By which I mean I moved here from San Francisco. And that was just about 3 months ago. So yeah, I'm fairly new. Survived my first New England winter.
Nice. How was it?
It was cold and a little icy and fine, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you.
I own a jacket, so it was okay.
Those come in handy.
Yeah, some days I needed two.
Layer
Yeah.
up, layer up. That's something I learned. Now, Bill, you've been here for many years.
Seems like forever. Yeah, I was. I started coming here in '90. My wife and I settled here in the end of 2001, and have been here since. It's been great. Love it here.
Nice. So both of you are performers. You do both
Yes.
theaters, but you do slightly different things or similar things in many things. But let's start with you, Billy.
Sure.
What is your art forms that you do?
Sure. So primarily is theater, and then within theater, a discipline called physical theater. So infusing acrobatics, mask performance, and something called devising, where essentially you go into a studio and write a play on your feet. That you can sit down and write a script traditionally, but the emphasis on the form is to go into a space, with your ensemble, your creative partners, or sometimes it's just yourself, and that you come out with your material, and then out of that comes a play. So yeah, that's.
And how long have you been doing, performance?
Oh gosh, I was shoehorned into my first leotard at 12 years old and put in furry pants to play a satyr in a middle school rendition of Cymbeline by Shakespeare. So that tells you most of what you need to know about that piece.
Do you have any photos of that?
I'm sure, like the moment I ever declare I'm running for public office, they're gonna come just right out from
Can you
where.
explain this?
Yeah.
Billy, please.
So so that was my kind of like the first bite of it, and then just on and on since then. I've been able to travel the world and work at some pretty interesting levels with some really wonderful people, and that doesn't seem to have changed now that I'm here in Brattleboro.
Yeah, it's a very circus community here. Yeah. Now, Bill, how did you get started in the performance?
In this, mine is very similar to his. At 12, I wanted to take tap dance classes. I wanted to be like Fred Astaire. And so that was the beginning. But I lived in a small town in New Jersey, and I went to the dance school. I was the only boy there, and I kept doing it. Kept doing things, the school plays throughout high school. I went to college after that and kept dabbling in the theater. But that wasn't an option for me. I didn't think that was a way to go. And then I had a theater teacher who said, "You're really good. Why don't you move to New York?" And I went, "How do you do that?" And so I wound up within a year or so of after getting into college, I was off into New York to study at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy to study musical theater. And when I left there, I then went on and went to clown college, and that gave me some other new skills. And then I went off with the circus, figuring I'd just take a break for a year and then I'd get back to New York and do the theater thing. But the circus thing just kept going, and I kept learning more skills and became an acrobat, and added that onto the theater training, and then started doing stunt work, and it was, everything just kept happening. And I always kept saying, I'm going to get back to theater, I'm going to get back to theater. And finally, 30-something years later, I'm finally getting back to theater.
right. So I was listening to you. You joined a couple of circuses, right? You
Yes,
in
I've worked almost 30 years in circuses. I started with Ringling Brothers as a clown, and traveled to Japan with them, and then all over the U.S. I worked at the Pickle Family Circus, based out of San Francisco, where I was a comedic character and an acrobat, and I learned Chinese acrobatics doing that. And then worked with other smaller companies. I worked with a group called Circus of the Kids, where we were training kids to do their own circus shows. And then worked with a group called Cirque Productions. And then worked with another group, a small company out of Montreal called Cirque du Soleil. And
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, I was an acrobat with them, and we traveled through Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Japan, through the Asia Pacific region.
That's great. So you mentioned you've also traveled a lot.
I have, yeah.
Like with the circus, or like with?
I've traveled primarily doing theater and then storytelling as well. So I've had the opportunity to work with Berkeley Repertory Theater most recently in San Francisco Bay Area. And they did a co-production with Looking Glass Theater of Treasure Island. So that was the show I had just done in June before moving here, which tied really wonderfully in some ways into some work I've done as a professional storyteller and educator on tall ships, on sailing ships, where I'm both part of the crew sailing the ship, and then also during the sails with a deck of 30-odd people, it opens up into a historical storytelling infused with folklore and a whole bunch of other things. And I've had a chance to travel both coasts of the United States and in the Great Lakes doing that. And then also I've had the opportunity to work at the Samuel Beckett Center in Dublin, Ireland. Was over there working, actually teaching ballet to youth for a while, by which I meant I was teaching the stage movement for anyone who was a non-dancer. And then just working with the Dublin Shakespeare Festival and a number of other groups in this new play or this iteration or this adaptation of a traditional story. And then I came back and got involved with the Del Arte Company in Humboldt County in Northern California and did a graduate program with them. And part of that graduate program was also this practice that we call theater of place, so that you make work based on where you are. And had the opportunity with them to travel and study and perform a little bit in Bali in Indonesia and all throughout Northern California and Oregon. And then produced and took my own show into Canada right after graduation and was able to put together 2 season tours with that work.
Wow.
So yeah.
Awesome. So we have 2 well-traveled performances. That's great. I have a question. So you've done clowning.
Yes.
Have you done clowning?
I have.
I have also done clowning. That was my first official job, like as an owner of a business. And I've noticed that every time I told people that I was a clown, they were like, "Oh, I'm afraid of clowns!" Like instantly, without even like, they're just afraid of clowns. Have you found that yourself too? Like you're like, "I'm a clown."
I hear that a lot about people telling me they're afraid of clowns. I also do this thing where I work with kids. I do kid shows, and I consider myself a clown ambassador to help break that stereotype or that mold of clowns are scary. And when I actually put my makeup on in front of the kids, and we talk about why I'm doing the shapes that I'm doing and why I'm using the colors that I'm using, where the red nose comes from, and then that also opens up the door to talk about clowns through different cultures. Because clowns in other cultures sometimes are shaman, sometimes they're considered the wise. They're also they are connected with the heaven and the earth. They're connected to the spirit world and the earthly realm. So they're otherworldly, and it's not reviled. It's something it's heralded, that they say, wow, these are holy people. And our culture, we look at the clowns as the fool, the idiot, the joke, and so I really work to change that. And I also talk about why that is that there is the scary clown, is that it's considered a mask, but that mask is actually our faces that we use. And for me, when I put my mask on, when I put the makeup on, as I explain to my audience, I say that as I put on the colors and I carve out the shapes, I'm actually taking off layers of my skin to expose my my raw nerves so that I can actually feel and interact with my audience. I'm not hiding behind it. I'm actually making myself more accessible by this. The clown makeup that I use, that I use with Ringling Brothers, and the clown makeup I use now for my theatrical stuff is very different. On Ringling Brothers, you're in a large arena, and the farthest audience member might be a quarter of a mile away. So you have to make that read from way back here to all the way out there. And whereas on a stage, your nearest audience member is 10, 15 feet away, and the farthest one is only a few more yards than that. So it's very different because you don't have to get that to express such a great range, and it changes the way that the makeup is used. And I talk about that as well, as about how certain things or certain ways of the makeup can be off-putting and scary, because we see so much more from the face and from the body because of the makeup.
Yeah, I like that you said that about how clowns used to be shamans and like all this stuff, and I wonder what is like the role that performers like us that are involved with the crowd, rather than like there's a lot of this TV stuff. Like, what is
Sure.
what do you think is our role as a performance that?
Yeah. So I guess the way I have always understood that is that when you're live with people in a space, you are always there with and for them first as a performer. I guess to go into that a little bit more is you have both the gift and the responsibility of sharing something with these people, and the goal is to change their breath, to laugh, to cry, whatever, however that's going to shape. That's what you're there to do. And just like a well-prepared meal or anything else, there's a sort of cheap way to do it, and then there's a more considered way to do it. And the best performances, even if it's something that's like an awful Greek tragedy with incest and people's eyes being taken out or whatever, it's done in a way, in the telling of the story, that involves the audience's complicity and consent that this is the story they're being told, to teach them a lesson or to move them in some way. The same way comedy works is that, and you can have high comedy, low comedy, you can have well done high comedy and well done low comedy. But it is that it always is with and for your audience.
I take from that as well. I write as well, and so I've written screenplays and scripts. And my first time I tried to write a horror script, I was completely blown away about how to do it. And as a clown, I'd been a clown for decades at that point, and I realized that any of this stuff is the same thing. We're telling a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in clowning, you take that beginning. The middle is the conflict. What do we have to overcome? And the end is the resolution of that conflict. For a clown, the resolution always has to have some sort of a twist, something that's unseen by the common folk. They go, I would never have thought to do that, right? And horror is the same twist, except it takes you to a deeper place or darker place. So comedy and horror are almost the same. We just take it, we turn that twist and we take it. There's many ways that we can make that twist go to. And any story, as you tell it, as you give that beginning, the introduction of who these characters are, what their conflict is they're overcoming, and where they're going, we're all telling stories. As a clown, I tell a lot of stories without using my words, and which means that I have to use my physical to convey a message to an audience. So it's an interaction, it's a conversation that's constantly happening. And the audience, so that whole idea that I'm gonna just do this thing, I'm gonna make you do anything, it's not possible. I'm gonna communicate with you, and then that's gonna let you free yourself up to open your imagination, to allow yourself to choose one of these paths and go to a new place, and then be excited by that place, or be afraid by that place, and no matter what, whether it's excitement, we do the same thing when we're excited or when we're afraid. We inhale, and then we either hold on to it or we exhale. And when we exhale, we start to laugh. And that process of breathing. I can't make you breathe. You breathe all the time, but I can help you to find a new way to breathe, whether it's to laugh, it's to cry, it's to suspend your disbelief. And it took me years as a performer, from the clowning to all that I do, to realize that you're my partner. My audience is my partner. We're having a conversation. And if I shut you out of that conversation, then there is no conversation. I have to constantly keep that door open, no matter what it is I'm doing, whether I'm trying to make you, or I'm trying to help you laugh, or I'm trying to help you cry, or I'm trying to help you feel. And that for me is the clowning.
The breath and the connection with the audience. Yeah. So I feel like these days, I don't know if you felt, there's a lot of negativity going around.
I have no idea what you're talking
You
about.
don't know what you're talking about? You don't feel it around?
It's always been there. It's
So
called
yeah.
balance. It's
Yeah.
balance.
And I think like what is the role of like laughter and like all this like I guess
For me, I think that it's, once again, that conversation is we have to keep the conversation going. And if we, it's about balance. Is that, you know, somebody might say, oh, there's more negativity now than ever. It's always been there. Look in every part of history, and you know, we talk about, oh, we're going to make America great again. When was it great? Because if you go back 20 years ago, they were trying to make it something else because it wasn't what they, you know, what we look at it we look at it and see it as. When we're living it, this is our struggle. You know, we're always going to be struggling. No matter what station you are in life, no matter what station you are financially, we're going through that. History can always be wonderful because we're not going to change it. And I look through every aspect of our history. There were oppressed people, but there were also people thriving. There were people in every part of that. And if you ask any one of those stations where they are in that time, even right now, there are people struggling, but there are also people thriving. What we're doing, what we're working on right now, is creating these stories. We're creating our folklore now. And I'll talk to him about that.
Sure.
In that, driving here today, I was thinking, you know, we have folklore in our society, in this culture, and that folklore has been there forever. But at some point in time, that folklore was new. It was told for the very first time. And once it was heard, what happens with that folklore is it's heard once, and it feels like it's been there forever. And what we're working on is some of the stories that are out there in our world today, pertinent to us right now. And we're working to create folklore based on that seems like, wow, we're living that story, and yet it's been around for forever, because it has been. We may change the technology. We have these smartphones and things like that. They didn't have them 100 years ago, but they had something else. You know, you talk to some folks and they'll talk about, oh, the television is the death of intelligence, or the telephone. Why can't we just walk over to the neighbor's house and knock on the door? We have, you know, all these different things. The jet plane, oh my God, we're going to ruin the world because we're going to be going to cultures that aren't supposed to meet us. There's always going to be a new technological advance that will ruin us. And there's always going to be that same thing that saves us. Connection.
That's right. That's right. Now, you've been here for three months. 3 months almost?
Yeah,
3 months?
getting there.
Yeah, and you've been here for a long time.
Forever.
Forever, ever?
Just like the stories.
How do you feel it's the Brattleboro, or the area more like how is the artist culture here?
There is one?
What? There's a what? I'm sorry?
Joking.
The culture, in terms of how do we find it?
No, like
Or-
how do you like what has just been your experience with it here?
Pervasive is the one word I'd use, which is
Thriving.
great. Yeah, absolutely. That it is everywhere on a scale that you do see. You know, you see this in cities like Belfast in Ireland, which, you know, had its really rough period if we're talking about people thriving and struggling. And, you know, now you walk through the streets there and all the mural art from what had happened, you know, people just started literally painting the sides of buildings, and those have all remained. You know, those have remained, some of the music's remained. And, you know, even in New York, as, you know, we think of as like the hotbed of the arts culture, you go down to Brooklyn and there's people, you know, cooking up puppets down in their uncle's kitchen and, putting them on stage the next night. So, and here in Brattleboro, for only being here for 3 months, I can see this many like there's this many posters of this many shows, or there's a gallery, there's the gallery walk. There's pound for pound, and I've lived, between college and touring, I've lived or seen a number of small towns. But there's a really, really fertile, a fertile topsoil, if you will, of people's creative energy here. And it's really neat to move here as an artist, as a new artist, and go, oh my God, I'm in Upper New England. Am I just gonna tap into a maple tree and eat cheese and that's all I do now? And no, it's not, because this person is creating in glass, this person is making in pottery. This is a viable studio where people are not only making work on oil on canvas, but teaching, fairly open source and accessible classes. The NECA, the Circus Center, is now building a new building. In a place and in a world and in a country where there is a lot of apprehension and a lot of unknowns about the arts community. The Bay Area, for example, a lot of the artists are having to make decisions of, do they shift career goals? Do they move? Because it's becoming pretty constrained economically for them. So to see somewhere where you can show up in a town and go, oh, okay, well, here's our regular art walk, and here's the new state-of-the-art facility we're building to train the next generation of circus artists. Oh, okay then.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the same thing, and we have NEYT right downtown. The music center is building into their new space. The circus center is building its new place. You've got Natalie Blake and Randy Sullen, who've got a space out there. We've got once again the Potters. We've got the Sandglass Puppet Theater. There are all these folks that are just doing some amazing stuff. The Sorority-acts are doing their marionette theater. And it's crazy. It's really cool that we have this fertile environment in which to grow. That this place can grow agriculture, and it can also grow arts so well. And we support each other. And the whole process, any independent artist knows, collaboration is the key. Collaboration is survival. It's a part of that. It's networking. It's creating your community. And we're working together. We're also with our director, who's also, she's new to the area. She had lived here years ago. She took off, Kaylee Quinn, and now she bought a house in Guilford, and she's directing us in our new project. And that collaborative effort is fantastic. We're collaborating also with Hilltop Montessori School, which has given us a place to a residency in which to create our new show. And they took that on as part of the whole Montessori concept of how they do things, and we're sharing our creative process with them, and then we're also we're in a school environment, which is so enriching because it's a place of learning. And we're learning to do this new thing, to take our skills and to tell a story in a new way, and yet make that new way seem so old. And have that in a nurturing place like a school, where we get to watch these amazing minds and bodies grow and absorb information, and also send it back out, take what they've absorbed and send it out, or in the school environment, is so enriching, and it's also so gratifying as a creator, because there are times in the creative process where we go, oh my goodness, it's not taking me where I think we should be going. And then you watch these kids who are learning their math, they're learning, to write differently, they're learning a new way, and we're going, it's like, oh, we can do this. Yes, we can learn.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that you would like to see in town, like differently, like for artists?
Oh man.
Or to improve, or just
I want to see it all.
I mean, it's like on the one hand, where do you begin? But also, what I mean, creative space, a supportive environment, like those are key. And then after that, the rest of whatever support manifests, but it's the seeds of it seem there.
I would have to say there is one thing I'd like to see.
Oh, what is this? Because I just got here. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we're at the Hilltop Montessori School because they have this wonderful black box theater. You've got Next Stage Arts in Putney, which has a great venue to perform in.
It's great there.
You've got the Hooker Dunham smaller theater space, but to have an actual theater. NEYT is so, they have a great theater, and it's a great venue, a teaching venue for the youth theater, and sometimes a nice place to play, but to have a theater, a legitimate theater where we could stage a larger show, that's the only thing that's missing here. For the theater artist.
If you're listening, stereo investors, please, we need a big...
I could have mentioned many of the venues. The Stone Church.
No, there's so many, but
has just been
182 Elliott Street is great too.
182, I rehearsed there for my last show, and it was great to be able to work in that space to create. And then I have done some poetry works in there. So there's so many really nice, warm, inviting spaces to be an artist in. Like I said, what's missing is a grand theater. We have the Latches, and it's mainly a movie house now. So the stage is a legit stage. It's not fully that theater in which you're going to stage a show on and have set pieces and props and things going in there. So one thing.
So, is there any projects that you're working on lately that you want to invite people to come, or how to?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's this show, which I imagine we'll probably have showings in May to early June. We'll start.
Probably have our work in progress showings coming in May, because we're still conceptualizing. We spent December doing a lot of research and figuring out where we might be going with it and how we're going to take it out there. And then also coming up with resource material to start growing the show.
So what is the show, by the way?
What is the show?
Yeah, I didn't even ask you.
The show, it doesn't even have a name yet.
It doesn't even have a name.
It's Bill and Billy.
It's under a working title at the moment.
Our working title is Bill and Billy. We have toyed with many different things. Whitewashed. We've talked about we've had many different things, because what I brought to the table when we first met is I had this idea of an old character, an Uncle Remus type of character, who would tell folklore and folktale, and I was thinking about Billy as a character as being a professor who was telling fact, reading social studies, and taking those things and juxtaposing them, and taking the folklore and pulling the facts out that are historical facts, and taking the facts and showing where some of those facts are missing, and putting the folklore, overlaying the folklore into the fact. And as we work, it changes our status from just being this old storyteller to being the professor, and the professor who was laying out the facts turning and becoming the folklorist. And so, and yet the stories don't change very much. It's just that we add in some of the things that are missing. As many people have said, history is written by the ones who won. The conquerors write history. The ones who are oppressed and lose don't get to write their history, or history doesn't get passed on. But there is still a history that is pushed under the carpet, is slid aside, which actually helped formulate what we know as our history. And there's so much there. And speaking as a person of brown skin, there's a lot of my history that I still am learning about. My great-grandfather, which is not very long ago, was born a slave. And that tells a lot, because this is a person which I hear that and I go, well, that was then. But to think that my great-grandfather was born as property. Wow. He wasn't even a citizen. And at what point did he become a citizen? At what point did any of my ancestors become citizens? Is a story that I think needs to be told. And not out of anger, but just out of discovery of when do we become who we are.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here at the Awesome Art Story. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Hopefully, I would love to come to your show, and I would love to collaborate with you. Something.
Sure.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe,
Great.
maybe
Yeah.
you're a filmmaker. I
Yeah.
forget to mention that. Really great artist, by the way. Again, thank you so much. And we're gonna.